Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to BSing Sports. My name is Bill. With me, as always, is Ryan. Tim had some technical difficulties, so he is not with us today, which is fine. We are officially BSing Sports Podcast, an affiliation of BSing Network. That's right. Ryan and I finally got it all squared away. BSing Network coming at you here. BSing Sports Podcast on BSing Network. Congratulations here, Ryan. It feels good, doesn't it? I think Ryan froze. Did Ryan freeze? Is Ryan still there? Ryan froze. Ryan did freeze.
No, God damn it. I couldn't hold my breath any longer. Yeah. It feels real good. It's just another step in the chain. Eventually we're going to grow. We got some big things coming at BSing Network. We are not just going to be a sports network. We're going to have some high quality entertainment, more to come on that. But hopefully you guys watching the show who have been with us since day one have joined on at any point since then or along for the ride. Going to be some big things. And at the top of the screen, 85 out of 100. We're 15 away. 15 away. So go ahead, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends about us. We are BSing Sports on BSing Network.
That is correct. All right. So as you guys know already, we're doing our recap show for this week's NFL games, this past weekend's NFL games, and we're going to have a couple of other topics we want to touch on. You want to get us kicked off here, Ryan? You don't have it pulled up? You don't have it pulled up?
No, I don't have it pulled up.
All right, so Thursday Night Football.
It's funny. So before we started the show, I said I'm back because usually I do the intro and all that. Clearly, I am not all the way back because I don't even have all the materials pulled up. But hey, as you guys have noticed, I'm in my own apartment again, back in my own studio.
Yeah, it's good to see you there. Obviously, I'm sure you had a good time with Tim.
Yeah, it was a good time. Thanks, Tim. I know you're watching.
He better be watching. So we already talked about the Thursday night game, the Cardinals and Saints. Saints come out kind of flat, get beat up. Cardinals take advantage of that. First game, 3-3 Falcons visiting the 3-3 Bengals. All three of us took the Bengals. The Bengals obviously get the victory here. They are starting to look like the team we thought they were going to be at a training camp.
Yeah, and that was my big point. The previous week, I forget who they played. I apologize. Like I said, 2 weeks ago, I was unable to watch most of football. I did catch the Eagles-Cowboys game because that was the important one, but I was on the road actually driving two Timmys. So 2 weeks ago, I got a quick recap, and they looked like themselves. Jamar Chase was making big plays. Joe Burrow was making some big-time throws, and I said that they were just going to continue to feed off of that. And that's exactly what happened here again. Jamar Chase was another couple big plays, good touchdown catch and double coverage. And because of the big play and deep threat ability that he has, he also has the ability to take those short 10-yard hitch routes to the house because of the way that the cornerbacks have to play him like he did for his second touchdown. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd also had very good games. The Bengals offense is now clicking on all cylinders, and they quite frankly have a very underrated defense as well.
Oh, he did freeze that time. Yeah, the Bengals do have an underrated defense, as Ryan already pointed out. Joe Burrow's starting to really figure it out. Jamar Chase is starting to look better, and I think I did hear you say his name. Tyler Boyd is really starting to create separation, which creates havoc for that defense. You're talking they're concerned about. They got to worry about T. Higgins. They got to be worried about Joe Mixon out of the backfield. They got to be worried about Jamar Chase, and now Tyler Boyd's really putting together a nice season, and they're starting to look dangerous again.
Joe Burrow ran for a touchdown, 21-yard scamper, so he's looking a little dangerous too. A little dangerous, Joe.
Yeah, they're really starting to look like the team we thought they were coming out of training camp. Browns 2-4 Browns visiting the Ravens. Browns almost snuck this one out. I called the Ravens winning my lock game of the week, and it was starting to look like it wasn't going to be my lock game for the week.
You know what's funny? You mentioned lock game specifically. Tim and I had a lock game each too, and we both lost our lock game. He picked the Pats over the Bears, and I picked the Bucks over the Panthers, and neither one of those were. That just goes to show you any given Sunday. However, the Ravens have had some serious, and I mean very serious issues closing teams out in the fourth quarter. They get out to these big leads, and then they just can't hold them. I can't really figure it out. I think it has a lot to do with the passing attack. Mark Andrews was barely involved last week. Rashad Bateman, his first game back, he was minimally involved as well. It was pretty much the Gus Edwards show, and I know that the Ravens are built on running the football, but they're going to have to throw it at some point too. They're near the bottom in the NFL in yards per game passing, so I think they have to start opening their offense up a little bit more. We really haven't seen a good passing attack since the Miami game.
Yeah, and remember that at the end of that game, the passing attack came crumbling to the ground, and they just haven't looked like the same team since. They go into that Miami game 2-0. They lose, obviously. The Dolphins come out victorious, and they just haven't looked like the same team. That's not entirely true. They look like the team that showed up in the fourth quarter, but now they've done it through games. It's been accentuating at this point, and that's turning into a problem for the Ravens.
Now the Browns haven't played terrible football. I know that their record isn't, quite what everybody wanted it to be, but the Browns have hung in there on some games, and they've also blown some leads themselves. So the Browns aren't necessarily a slouch, as much as their record would show.
Yeah, no, that's an accurate statement. Jacoby Brissett has not looked good. He's turned the ball over in the end zone 3 straight weeks in a row now, and you're not going to win games when you're doing that.
Kareem Hunt's on the block too.
Kareem Hunt is on the block. We'll get to those block players. 1-4 Lions. Timmy and I both took the Lions. Ryan took the Cowboys. Ryan's the only smart one in the group here.
I tell you what, for 3 quarters, man, I know it was 10-6 at the end of the third. The Lions were outplaying them. The Lions just kept shooting themselves in the foot. I was not impressed with the Cowboys. I figured that Dak coming back this week after the long layoff, he would start a little slow, and they kind of managed him a little bit. They didn't really let him swing it loose. I think he only threw 25 passes for 270 yards and a touchdown. Didn't turn the football over, so that's good for him. Zeke with 2 touchdowns rushing. Pollard had another good game. So the ground attack with 139 yards total, they had a good game. But I expected better. Detroit had statistically far and away the worst defense in the NFL, and the Cowboys offense for 75% of that game couldn't move the football to save their lives. I would be concerned if I was the Cowboys offense. Now the defense did what the defense does, and they shut down the Lions offense in short order. I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown went out with a no concussion, apparently. We'll get into that in a second. DeAndre Swift still wasn't healthy. DJ Chark's not out there. Josh Reynolds didn't get involved hardly at all, but the Cowboys defense is obviously the strength of this team, and they are going to lean on the running game until Dak Prescott proves that he's 100% healthy.
For what it's worth, I really don't have that much faith in Dak Prescott anyway. That's 2 games this season where Dak Prescott's led the offense and they've struggled. Now, I know he's coming off of the injury and, he didn't really play during training camp. And, these are great excuses, but for a guy who's supposed to be elite, he's supposed to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league, that's not a good start.
He's the 3rd best quarterback in the division right now.
I would absolutely agree with that behind Hurts and Daniel Jones. 100% would agree with that right now, yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Let's talk about the concussion real quick. The non-concussion to Amon-Ra St. Brown. The new NFL regulations state that if a player comes off the field for anything that looks like motor skill, inadequacies, meaning like they're stumbling a little bit, they don't really know where they're at for a few seconds, they automatically rule it as a concussion because of what happened to Tua in week 4 of the season, and then again in week 5 of the season. So it's automatically ruled a concussion at this point. So Amon-Ra St. Brown had to be ruled out of the game, even though he did not have a concussion. That did affect the game plan for the Lions, and it did affect how the Lions performed offensively. Listen, Jared Goff turning the ball over 4 times didn't help, but having your best receiver on the field is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely hurts. I think that the Lions probably could have pulled that out had Amon-Ra St. Brown stayed in the whole game, truthfully. But I mean, that's a what if, and the Cowboys ended up winning the game, and they're 4-2, 5-2,
4-2. Yep,
4-2.
I'm sorry, no, you're right, 5-2. These are last week's record that I'm looking at. Yeah. Next game, huge surprise. All 3 of us take the Packers. The Commanders with Taylor Heinicke come out victorious, 23-20. If you weren't hitting the panic button on the Packers, I believe now's the time. You're talking week 7. They just fell to a backup quarterback in Washington. Listen, the Commies are not a good team. They're not a good team. We know they're not a good team. But again, I'm standing strong on if you weren't panicking, if you're a Packers fan and you weren't panicking, I think now it's time to start panicking.
This is a direct quote from Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. Guys who are making too many mistakes shouldn't be playing. Got to start cutting some reps. Now, most people are going to blame the quarterback. That's just the way that the NFL works, is the quarterback takes all the glory, quarterback takes all the blame. And Aaron Rodgers has his fair share of blame. The line's not blocking. Aaron Jones had 3 drops to start that game. Alan Lazard had a drop. Robert Tonyan had a drop. Romeo Doubs couldn't catch a cold in the Arctic. That the receiving core is not helping him out in the slightest. And for what whatever reason on God's green earth the last 2 weeks, I think A.J. Dillon has 7 touches total. Obviously, he's the clear 1B to Aaron Jones, but he's not even getting on the field. They're not even trying to run the ball between the tackles. The Packers offense is in complete disarray. I don't know what to make of this. I think that their turnaround is quite simple in the fact that they just need to run the football a little bit more. Let your offensive line fire out, hit the guys in front of you, and proceed to run the football down people's throats with your duo of good running backs. That's the strength of this team. Look, Rodgers has elevated people's games for so many years. I mean, he was there with Driver. He was there with, obviously, Jordy Nelson. He was there with Greg Jennings. He was there with Devontae Adams, who was obviously good in his own right, but elevated still nonetheless. Aaron Rodgers is 39 years old. We're not expecting the same Aaron Rodgers that we have seen in previous years. This team has to help him out a little bit. Now, granted, there's some things that he could fix, but I don't think that he's playing nearly as bad as people are going to point the finger out to be. There are a lot of problems right now in the Packers offense, and the defense too is they're elite on paper and they're not playing that way. Somebody needs to step up.
I agree, and to Aaron Rodgers' credit, Aaron Rodgers has been the one stepping up year after year after year. This year, he was supposed to have a good defense to help him. He signed that contract. We talked about this after he signed the contract. He assumed Davante Adams was staying in Green Bay. The loss of Davante Adams, I think, did negatively affect his. I'm also not seeing any comments. So if people are commenting, we're not getting
the Facebook feed. We apologize. We're not seeing anybody's comments right now, but that doesn't mean go away. You can still watch and hit us up in the DMs after. But yeah, right now, if you switch over to YouTube, maybe we'll get a comment. I'll do a test comment, but go ahead on your point.
Year after year after year, Aaron Rodgers has been playing with poor defense. He's had mediocre receivers outside of Davante Adams, and he's been the one who's always stepped up. As you pointed out, he's 39 years old now. Somebody else going to need to step up. He's going to do his job. He's still going to be a pretty relevant and effective quarterback, if people can catch the football around him. But there was a time during this game on Sunday where he looked over at Matt LaFleur on the sideline and he was like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because it just didn't look like it was working. None of them looked like it was working. Greg Jennings is a nobody without Rodgers. That's a comment that Ryan Swift put up on YouTube. It did work. We got it.
He's absolutely right.
So for those of you watching on Facebook, we want to apologize for all your comments that we aren't getting. Can you please switch over to YouTube and watch us and comment there? I'll figure this out by the time our next show, which is tomorrow, happens.
Yeah,
I do apologize.
I got some comments up here. So Ken Brandt says, I think the coach is done, if not after the season soon. I'm assuming he's referring to Matt LaFleur. I can't really see the timing of these comments. And then Timothy Hawkins says he can't throw and catch. Truth.
Nick Foles would disagree, but that's fine.
So I got, I'll wait till we get.
We're going to get into it. Again, fans, apologies. Facebook doesn't appear to be working with us tonight. If you can, please go to YouTube and put some comments in, and we'd appreciate that. Otherwise, it's just Ryan and I talking to each other, which is nice.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Bill in a while.
It has been a little while, yeah. We usually get on early, and we just haven't been able to. I've been working a lot and with a new job, so we're trying to find time. Colts 3-2-1, visiting the Titans at 3-2. You and I took the Titans. Timmy took the Colts. I think he was riding that Matt Ryan high from the week before. We were going to get into that. But obviously the Titans come out victorious. They turn into a 4-2 team. They are the cream of the crop in that division. And the Colts are reeling.
Yeah, and we'll touch on it a little bit more, but let's clear the elephant out of the room. Matt Ryan is benched for Sam Ehlinger moving forward, starting with Week 8. Other than that, that's hi Ty. That's about it. You said it perfectly. The Colts are reeling, and quite frankly, I think Reich's out of a job in the offseason. Truthfully, if the Colts don't win the division for a third straight year with Frank Reich there, a third straight quarterback, fourth at this point, I guess, I think he's done. I think that they're just going to move on from Frank Reich, truthfully. He hasn't shown that he can coach at an NFL level. And you know what? That's fine. If you look at guys like Todd Bowles, and they're fantastic coordinators. Mike Zimmer was a fantastic coordinator. They're just not great NFL coaches, and it worked out that way sometimes. But I think Frank Reich's job is really on the line here, and I think that has a lot to do with the switch. Now, moving off to Matt Ryan, his play has been atrocious. And how many consecutive weeks did I say on this show that he is not an upgrade over Carson Wentz? Does anybody believe me now?
Everybody? Yeah, I mean, to your point, Carson Wentz throws 7 interceptions in 16 games last season. Matt Ryan has thrown 9 in 5. I mean,
like he's not an upgrade. He never was an upgrade. He might have been a better teammate, which is fine. I think most people in the league are better teammates than Carson Wentz at this point. I think that we can all assume that is a accurate statement, but he is not a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz isn't like great. Matt Ryan's just 4,500 years old. He's washed. I mean,
Matt Ryan's 38.
Let's face the reality here. He's washed. They can't push the ball downfield. They refuse to give the ball to Jonathan Taylor for whatever reason, who averaged 7 yards a carry and got 10 carries the whole game. That made no sense at all, especially when your quarterback play sucks and the game is close. You would think you would just run the ball, but I don't know what Frank Reich's doing at this point. The Colts are, top 5 in terms of in shambles. They're right up there with the Broncos and the Packers and the Buccaneers, and we'll get into those guys later. But yep, they're in shambles.
Yeah, no, listen, I mean, you've been talking about it all year. I kind of came around after the first 2 weeks of the season. Matt Ryan is not a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. He's not an upgrade up there. We had discussed it the entire time. We had also discussed Frank Reich being one of the hottest seats in the NFL at the time. And I think it just becomes way more apparent here. As you already pointed out, that was a team that Phillip Rivers had, 11-6 or 11-5 that particular season, made it into the playoffs and then first round elimination. And Phillip Rivers was 42 years old and they managed to do all that. Listen, that looked really good. Carson Wentz comes in, he gets you to
9-8.
He's got you at 9-6, and then some poor play down the stretch gets you to 9-8, and you miss the playoffs. And now you're looking at a 3-1 start to the season, and you're making a quarterback change after signing and guaranteeing, $42 million to Matt Ryan?
Yeah. So for those of you that don't know, and I tweeted this out, the Colts, when they traded a 3rd-round pick for Matt Ryan, guaranteed every penny of the $59 million he is owed between this year and next. Let that sit in for a second. He hadn't played a snap for the Colts, and they just wanted to prove themselves right that Carson Wentz was the problem. Carson Wentz was the scapegoat. Frank Reich is the problem.
And it's looking more and more like that every single week. Phillip Rivers was still a pretty good quarterback, even in his age. He couldn't push the ball down the field, but they had Jacoby Brissett on the sideline that could help them do that. Carson Wentz last year could push the ball down the field, but JT was playing out of his mind as well. So Tim Hawkins says, are they still paying Wentz too? I do believe they are paying Wentz. I think the Eagles still hold some of that. I think the Colts still hold some of that.
The Eagles are off. I know that for a fact.
Eagles are off. Okay. So the Eagles aren't, but I believe the Colts are still paying Carson Wentz as well. So now you're talking, they've got 4 quarterbacks that they're paying this season. And I mean, that's got to do with the front office, but the reality is, Ryan said it, nail on the head there. Carson Wentz last year was the scapegoat. The reality is the team fell apart in the last couple of weeks of the season, and that's got to do with coaching. We spent too much time on this. We'll come back to that. 5-1 Giants visiting the 2-4 Jaguars. All 3 of us took the Jaguars. We said that the Giants weren't really that good of a team, and now the Giants are 6-1.
And I said that I was going to start to finally consider them a serious football team, and I'll stick true to my word. I think that the Giants, not Super Bowl contenders, because the thing about Super Bowl contenders is they can get into shootouts. The Giants can't get into shootouts. They just don't have the offensive weapons. But Brian Daboll is doing anything a great coach would do and utilizing what he has available to him. He has Saquon Barkley available to him, and he has Daniel Jones available to him. Both of those guys can run the football, and Daniel Jones can even throw it sometimes too. But I don't know what to say about this team. They're playing great defense. They're managing the offense. They're not making stupid plays on offense. They're a good football team. They're not a great football team. If you squared them up in Buffalo with Josh Allen or the Kansas City Chiefs or any of the high-powered offenses in the NFL, are they going to win? Probably not. But they're in that second tier right there where it's like, hey, like if these guys show up in a conference title game at this point, are we going to be surprised? Not really.
No. So, I mean, listen, it's like the biggest thing I preach week in and week out. We talk about it with at least one team a week. What the Giants are doing really well right now is putting their playmakers in position to be successful. Point blank. Saquon Barkley out of the Wildcat getting what? He's averaging 24, 28 touches a game. That's your best player. He needs to get 28 touches a game. Daniel Jones can't push the ball down the field
in a Wildcat formation is astounding. Where else do you think that ball's going to go?
Yeah, exactly. Daniel Jones can't push the ball down the field. Perfect. We'll do 2-step slant routes, and then we'll get one receiver going down the field. And if he looks open, let Daniel try and release it. They're doing the right things. And let's give credit where it's due. Daniel Jones, we already said he's the second best quarterback in this division right now. He's making smart decisions, whereas in years past, he was trying to force too much because that was the directive. Force it down the field. Force it to your receivers. Now he's not having to do that. He's using play action. He's using RPOs, and he looks decent.
I am super curious now because obviously, as we all well and know, the Giants denied the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones. What are they going to do? I mean, Jones isn't deserving, $40 million right now, but Jones is taking this team to 6-1. What are they going to do? I mean, the free agency, the free agent market for quarterbacks isn't fantastic in the offseason.
Well, Matt Ryan will be available.
What's up?
Matt Ryan will be available.
I mean, if the Colts cut him and eat a whole $29.5 million, maybe. Franchise tagging Daniel Jones is tough because it's based on, the top percentage of people at your position.
And he's not. And he's just not.
Yeah. So
sorry, that comment came from Ken Brandt. He says, I got a franchise tag. Oh, okay. Well, Ken Brandt said, I got a franchise tagging. He's referring to Daniel Jones, and then Ryan just happened to answer it at the exact same time. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah, I know, but Spotify can't see that.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, so, I mean, maybe the Manning brothers, when they said, hey, this was the guy to replace Eli, we're kind of onto something. Maybe Daniel Jones just, as Tim Hawkins alludes to in the comments, it took a little while for him to figure it out. But the free agency market's going to be interesting. If Tom Brady decides he wants to stay and play football, he's technically a free agent next year. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be a free agent next year. Mitch Trubisky is going to be a free. I mean, the free agency market's going to be terrible for quarterbacks. Jameis Winston. It really all comes down to the draft, in my opinion. But I could see them bringing Daniel Jones back on a 1-year deal,
especially because they're winning. If they were losing, hands down, goodbye.
Yeah. Tim Hawkins says Mac Jones here. We don't even know if Mac Jones is going to start for the Patriots or not. Let's pump the brakes on Mac Jones a little bit. I want to get some more information about it, although there might be some quarterback controversy in New England. We can talk about it later.
I said there was a week and a half ago. I said there was quarterback controversy in New England, and it looks like I'm right.
Now, I will say it was reported by Adam Schefter after the game that pulling Mac Jones early was talked about prior to the game start.
If he didn't look healthy enough to move around.
Bailey, Matt Patricia, and Mac all had.
Yeah, the word was if he didn't look healthy out there, because he's telling them he's healthy, if he didn't look ready to be out there, they were going to pull him immediately. It took him a quarter and 4 minutes or something like that. And it was the right decision. I think he came back too soon, probably because he felt like a quarterback controversy was coming in New England. And that does take effect. You're sitting on the sideline, you're injured, and you can move around. You're thinking to yourself, this guy's playing better than me. I got to get back on the field. Yeah. And I think the coaches knew it, which is why there was a game plan in place immediately. Listen, if he doesn't look good, he's coming out. End of story.
I don't think Mac Jones' job is in jeopardy yet, but it's something to think about. It is very interesting. I just think that him having a first-round draft capital, it's still a little early to pull the plug on him.
All right, the other side of that, the Jaguars losing. Doug Peterson for a couple weeks of the season, 3 weeks of the season, because they even look pretty decent against the Eagles in that rainstorm. The Jaguars look like a really good team, and now all of a sudden they're reeling. They're 2-5. They don't look like a good team anymore. And I'm going to have to go back.
Fine on Sunday. They just got beat by a better team. I mean, Christ, they were 1 yard away from winning the game.
That's a really good point. That is a really good point. Good teams win in those situations.
Yeah, they're 2-5. They're 2-5, and I know they just lost to them last week, But if you played them 10 times, I'm taking the Jags 8 out of 10 times over the Colts. That's how weird football is. When you look at the Colts 3-3-1, it looks awful. When you watch them play football, they just look terrible doing it. I don't get that feeling about the Jags. We knew that this was a young team. We knew that Trevor Lawrence going into his second year, really his first year, because Urban Meyer didn't teach him jack shit. Christian Kirk just getting there, being the number one receiver. Zay Jones coming in the offseason. The running back transition, which we are going to talk about at the end of not the end of the show, but it'll be after we go over our predictions. There was a lot of moving pieces for this team. They're just young. Give them some time. Yeah. They're going to lose. They're going to lose these close games. That's just the way that the Jaguars are built. They don't have the NFL experience on their roster to win games like that. They were 1 yard away from beating the Giants, who we just said were a good team. So I'm not going to sit here and say the Jags are a bad team, and Tim Hawkins says Lawrence busting. I don't think you're actually watching the football games if you have to ask that question. If I'm being
Trevor Lawrence looks.
I don't think you've
Trevor
watched
Lawrence is making
football if you ask that question. That's embarrassing.
Trevor Lawrence makes a lot of really good decisions, and then people harp on him for the one or two bad ones that he makes. And it's unfortunate, but because he started so rough last year with Urban Meyer, because the team is not doing so well, they're 2-5. As Ryan already pointed out when we were talking about Green Bay, the quarterback takes all of the glory, the quarterback takes all of the criticism, and that's just what Trevor Lawrence is dealing with right now. But if you're watching Trevor Lawrence, he doesn't look lost. Doug Peterson's doing a good job. Doug Peterson, his first year in Philadelphia, what did they go? 6-10, 7-9, something along those lines.
7-9. They started out 4-0.
They did start out 4-0, ended up 7-9. And he was with a young quarterback and a young team. I think it's going to be a similar situation. Do I say the Jaguars win the Super Bowl next year? Absolutely not. But I think they'll be more successful after a year. Absolutely, 100%. I don't think Lawrence is a bust.
Trevor Lawrence looks head and shoulders over what he did last year. That wasn't a pun about his hair and, head and shoulders. But let's break it down. So we got a guy who in 7 games, he's only got 9 passing touchdowns, but he's only thrown 4 interceptions. He's averaging, about 243 yards a game, and he's thrown for an 89 passer rating with a 52 QBR. So he's above 50 on the QBR, which means he's really not playing that poorly. And mind you, he also has 3 rushing touchdowns. This is a guy that slyly can move his feet. I think Trevor Lawrence is playing fantastic in my opinion, but if you take that one, mud, rainy game out, I think Trevor Lawrence is playing fine, and even then it's really hard to judge a player on those conditions.
Next game. Jesus. All 3 of us took the Buccaneers. The Panthers obviously come out victorious. Listen, I'm going to say it, and I'm probably not the first person that said it because we spend a day waiting to do our show here. The Buccaneers are not a good team. On the roster, on paper, they look good. But right now, they are not a good team. Either Tom Brady is just not focused or Mike Evans isn't focused, dropping in a wide-open touchdown to start the game. But the receivers don't look like they're in sync with Tom Brady. Tom Brady doesn't seem like he can push the ball down the field as well as he did just last year, 1 year. And the running game is that started out good for the season is really starting to stutter here because people realize that Tom Brady can't push the ball down the field, so they're stacking 8 in the box. The Buccaneers, if you're a Buccaneers fan, I think just like with the Packers, I think maybe it's time to start hitting the panic button.
I'm going to ask a question. Who do you think's in worse shape, the Buccaneers or the Packers?
I'm going to say the Buccaneers. And the Buccaneers have the better roster.
I got 2 words that describe the Buccaneers. I guess it's technically 3. Old and slow. No speed on the team.
That's right.
They're the slowest team in football, if you ask me. I think they actually do rank 31st in the NFL in speed on the roster. Think about it. Where are their speed burners at? Julio Jones, who's been hurt the last few weeks, he ain't a speed burner. Mike Evans, nope. Chris Godwin, sure ain't. Russell Gage, nope. Leonard Fournette, nah. Any of the tight ends, nope. Brady, nah. They have no speed. And on top of that, they've lost 3 out of their 5 starting offensive linemen. I think Ryan Jensen's due back soon, though, so thank God that they're getting him back. But the Buccaneers are old and slow. They can't – they just look so out of sync. And I'm going to be honest, I think Tom Brady's mind is not 100% on football right now. I think that's apparently obvious. He's not playing poorly. He's not just playing like absolute garbage. He's not throwing ridiculous turnovers. He's not Mitch Trubisky, but – I think he certainly can play better than what he's playing right now. I don't know. I don't know. to me, I think the Buccaneers are playing worse than the Packers, but I think they are better off because their whole division sucks so bad. I mean, the winning
at this point, I don't think the Packers are catching the Vikings.
The Buccaneers are 3-4 and in first place in the NFC South. There's time. They have a little bit more of a buffer to figure it out than the Packers do. The Packers at this rate are not going to catch the Vikings. The Vikings are 5-1 and they look like a really good football team. But the Buccaneers look worse, but they have more time to figure it out because the circumstances allow it.
Yeah. I'm still hitting the panic button on both teams. We should get a panic button noise.
Okay. I'll make it happen.
Yeah. Texans 1-3-1 visiting the Raiders. All three of us take the Raiders. The Raiders win handily. I believe the score was like 33-21 or something like that, 33-23. Derek Carr looked really bad to start the game and then came on and looked really good to finish the game. I don't have a lot to talk about in this game because I didn't see much of it. I only saw the first two quarters. And like I said, going into halftime, that game was really close. Your Texans looked like they might be able to pull out another upset on the road, but obviously the Raiders pull it out.
Yeah, the Texans are an interesting team. Davis Mills is kind of formulating to be everything that I thought he would, in the sense that he's just okay. He's kind of a bridge the gap quarterback. He's not really going to – I didn't think that this job was going to be his past this year. I think that they're just going to go out and draft another quarterback.
You thinking Levi?
What's up?
I'm sorry. You thinking Levis?
I think we'll get into who goes where when it comes draft time. But
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, this is exactly what the Texans are. They're a team that's going to fight. They're going to keep it close. They're young. They're gritty. They're a lot like the Jaguars, except I think the Jaguars have a higher ceiling. I think that they're more talented. I think that they're better coached. That Brandon Cooks doesn't look the same. Nico Collins is finally looking like the downfield threat he was drafted to be out of Michigan, but he got hurt this past game. But Dameon Pierce is the lone bright spot for the Texans. He, 20, 25 touches a game, over 100 yards. Dan Mullen's looking real stupid for not using him the way that he should have in Florida.
I concur 100%. Like, we're right there together. Next game, Jets visiting the Broncos. The 2-4 Broncos at the time. Now they're 2-5, 5-2 Jets. Is it time for us to, just like the Giants, look at the Jets and say, that's a pretty decent team?
We got to balk at that now, and I'll get into that in a second, but I want to talk about the Broncos first. Broncos are a terrible football team.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to talk about the Jets.
Hold on. Before you fire off with that, rumors came out of Broncos camp earlier that Judy is on the bar, on the bar or on the block. Are they really ready to blow this up?
Actually, it's funny you say that. I don't know if you saw in the chat earlier for one of our fantasy leagues. I posted. I got an inside source that said Judy to the Giants actually is formulating, and that would be the quote unquote best fit and make the most sense. So, Bill, why don't you go ahead and give me your take on that statement?
So I actually didn't read that. As I told everybody earlier, I'm really busy with work these days. I like it. Corey Davis is a suitable number 2-ish wide receiver. But Jared Judy comes in there, and then you've got Garrett Wilson on the opposite side. Man, that team becomes way more. Sorry, wrong team. They have no discernible wide receivers in New York Giants. So you put Judy over there, and it gives Daniel Jones just one more thing to manage. I do think that's a good fit. Be able to try and push the ball down the field, which I know Daniel Jones isn't good at, but like I said, they've already put their players in position to be successful. Why not Jared Judy, right? Daniel Jones only has to hit him and Judy's good at creating space. He's one of those wide receivers that you get him a ball in a quick slant, he can get 5 or 6 additional yards in open space and create just a little bit of open space. I think that is a good fit because of the way Daniel Jones is. He's an RPO kind of quarterback. He can only throw the ball 5-10 yards accurately. That's a good fit for me. Judy to the Giants is a good fit for me.
Yeah, so I agree. I think Judy to the Giants is a fantastic fit for everything that you said. And to look at it from the Jerry Judy side, I mean, he's a bust for his draft capital. He's not a bad receiver, but the fact that he was taken 12th overall, I believe, he was drafted by Henry Ruggs. He was taken 12th overall from what I believe 3 years ago. He has 14 drops in 33 games in his career. That is an astounding number, and not in a good way. I think Jerry Jeudy would benefit from a reset to a team where the expectations would be dampered, because obviously he's coming in with a bit of a reputation for being a drop monster. And he could.
So was the rest of their team.
And the offense would be much simpler for him. It's a good team. The vibe in the locker room's got to be really good right now. And it's another weapon for Daniel Jones. I think it would be a fantastic move. I was just going to get into that. Ken Brandt on YouTube asks, what are the Giants going to give up for him?
It's an interesting question because of the Daniel Jones situation.
What's up?
It's an interesting question because of the Daniel Jones situation.
So I think what I would do here, if I was Dave Gettleman, I'm going a third and a sixth in 2023. Let me back up. The Giants have all of their picks for 2023 and an additional seventh. So I'm going a third and a sixth with a 2024 fifth. I'm going to give up. That's going to be my initial offer, because, mind you, Jeudy still does have a high ceiling. He is still a very talented wide receiver. He's just been plagued a little bit by drops in his career. Hi, Thor. Or was that Bella? Bella?
That was
Hi,
Bella.
Now, what the Broncos, I can imagine there being a bulky situation there because Jeudy was first-round draft capital. So I imagine that the Broncos would probably want the Giants' second-round pick from this past year, somewhere in that neighborhood, plus a later pick. That's probably where it's going to sit. It sits somewhere in there between. I'm sure as hell not giving up a first round for Jerry Jeudy. There's no way.
No, I could easily go a 2 and a 7.
A 2
for
and
Jerry
a 7,
Jeudy.
maybe a late 2024 pick, something. But I'm not doing. There's no shot in hell that he gets a first round pick.
So Tim Hawkins brings up a good point. He says, and recoup from the Wilson trade. He's referring to the Broncos, obviously selling Jerry Jeudy. I think that's what's on their mind right now. I think they got a defensive linebacker that's on the block too. I think they realize that they may have made a mistake sending everything that they did to Seattle for Russell Wilson. He isn't the quarterback that he looked like in Seattle, and now it's starting to look like it was Pete Carroll making him look as good as he was in Seattle, because look at how Geno Smith is playing, right? We'll get to the Seahawks game in a minute. It looks like Pete Carroll knew what Russell Wilson's inefficiencies were and stayed away from them. Everybody kept saying I was one of them. I'll openly admit I was wrong. Let Russ eat. Let Russ eat. And Ryan called me out on it a few weeks back. Said, when is it time to stop pointing at the coaching and start pointing at Russell Wilson? I think that time was 2 weeks ago. And I think it's just time for it to stand. Russell Wilson is not the quarterback everybody thought he was. He was absolutely super successful in Seattle, and that happens. Quarterbacks are good with one team. Look at Nick Foles. For whatever reason, when he played in an Eagles uniform, he was extremely effective. He was really good. 27-2, wins a Super Bowl as a backup. But you move him to a new team, and he doesn't look the same. Some quarterbacks are just like that, and I think Russell Wilson might be that kind of quarterback in Seattle with that coaching staff. Good. Away from it, not good.
Tim Hawkins says we forgot to talk about the Jets. No, we haven't. We just haven't gotten there yet. Remember I said I'm going to start with the Broncos first.
Yeah, we're still on the Broncos, my guy. Sorry. Let's talk about the Jets, though. Listen.
Broncos are a bad team. They're in disarray. Russell Wilson's overrated. Cool, we covered all the topics. Nathaniel Hackett's getting fired at the end of the year. That's another topic.
You think it's going to take that long?
Yeah, I think they'll do the due diligence and give him a year. I think he's one and done. But we'll talk about that, later in the week. I think there's some coaches on the block. But the Jets, man, they're built on running the football and playing very good defense. That Sauce Gardner pick at number 3 overall is turning out to be insane. I mean, insane. He's a lockdown corner from the rip. I didn't hear Courtland Sutton's name at all in that game.
So we can get the stats on it, but I think he had 2 catches for like 13 yards.
Sauce Gardner's playing out of his mind right now.
You can keep talking.
And, they're running the football well. Michael Carter's still getting his touches. Breece Hall obviously was leading the way after kind of, ceding touches to Michael Carter to start his NFL career. Unfortunately, Breece Hall goes down with the torn ACL. We'll get into it a little bit more later. But as far as the Jets are concerned, I think that Breece Hall going down right now is the best thing for Elijah Moore, and here's why. Breece Hall was seeing a bunch of targets every game coming out of the backfield, and maybe that was by design, but he is a very good pass-catching back, and Elijah Moore coming out saying he wants a trade. I think now with Breece Hall going out is going to motivate him to step his game up a little bit. He could very well see those vacated targets. And if the Jets aren't able to run the football as well as they were when Breece Hall was healthy, they're going to have to throw the football more, which they haven't done a whole lot since Zach Wilson has come back. They've kind of eased his transition, established their dominance as a running football team. And maybe this injury forces Zach Wilson's hand and Robert Saleh's hand a little bit. So maybe it's time for Elijah Moore to step in, step up, take those targets Breece Hall was getting.
3 receptions, 23 yards. He was targeted 5 times, which means he was so covered.
Half those targets weren't even on Sauce Gardner.
Probably not. He was only targeted 5 times, which means Sauce Gardner did that good of a job that the quarterbacks were just like, you know what? On second thought, I'm good. That Sauce Gardner pick. Wow, man. Wow.
All of their picks. I mean, all the first round picks. Garrett Wilson's balled out in a couple of games this year. Before
listen, you and I discussed it at the beginning of the season. We said that the Eagles probably had the best offseason. However, the Jets drafted the best.
The Jets easily had the best draft, and they've hit on everything so far. It's unfortunate to see Breece Hall go down, but again, to this point, they were 3 for 3 in terms of their first 3 picks. They didn't mess up a single one of them.
Correct. Yeah. Point blank. I don't even have anything to add. That was good. We've got the Chiefs at now 5-2 who visited the 49ers who are now at 3-4. Timmy and I took the Chiefs. You took the 49ers. I understood your pick when you took it. I liked your pick when you took it. I just didn't think the Chiefs and Andy Big Red and Patrick Mahomes were going to lose 2 in a row, and I was right. Yeah. And that's really the biggest reason I went with the Chiefs. I didn't think Christian McCaffrey was going to play a lot, and he didn't. But once that offense gets going and Christian McCaffrey is a little bit more accustomed to the playbook there, I think they look much better. You give Jimmy Garoppolo a real safety net and a guy who can, A, run between the tackles, but B, also – you're talking about drops. Like we've been talking about drops the entire night on players. Christian McCaffrey isn't that guy. So you open up the screen game, not to mention you can have Deebo Samuel on one side acting like it's a screen and Christian McCaffrey on the other side acting like it's a screen, and defenses aren't going to know what to do. This is going to be a different offense starting next week.
They're going to be dynamic, and I wouldn't even say it starts next week. I would give Christian McCaffrey maybe 2 weeks, although he's not a quarterback, so they tend to learn the playbook a little bit faster. Tim Hawkins says Robinson, the Jets. We said we'll get to that stuff later. Dang it. Listen up. But, the 49ers offense is going to be lethal. I thought that they could win without McCaffrey, truthfully. And they started out hot. They started out 10-0 off the rip, intercepted Patrick Mahomes, turned it into a field goal. I was like, okay, 49ers came to play ball. Chiefs offense showed why they're elite. Chiefs offense showed they don't need Tyreek Hill to be elite.
Chiefs offense showed that they're good year in and year out for a reason. Sorry, what was that?
McCole Hardman had 2 rushing touchdowns.
He did.
MVS over 100 yards. I mean, that Patrick Mahomes.
I think Juju had 60 yards and a touchdown.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire had a touchdown on, I think, 11 touches or something like that.
Yeah, the team is – yes, Tyreek Hill is no longer there. However, the team is deep. The offense is deep. There isn't the one explosive guy, but they're all suitable to make plays. And that really bodes well for a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who doesn't have to target one guy. The kind of guy who likes to spread the football out.
As long as Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are there, the Chiefs will always be fine. They will never be out of football games.
I 100% agree. Seahawks, Chargers. All 3 of us took the Chargers. All 3 of us are idiots. Seahawks go to LA and beat the Chargers. And for a good part of this game, the Chargers did not look good. Point blank. Yeah.
I think Justin Herbert's kind of having a case of what Tom Brady had in the beginning of the year, in the sense that his weapons are kind of in disarray. I mean, you think about it. Mike Williams got hurt late in that game. Keenan Allen played the first couple drives and then was nowhere to be found. It's really just Herbert and Austin Eckler running the show out there. Truthfully, Mike Williams is going to miss, I think, 5 weeks probably. He's got a high ankle sprain, and it doesn't look like Keenan Allen's quite ready to come back yet. That's why they limited his snaps. I think that the Chargers offense as a whole, this was one of those elite offenses, or we were expecting to be elite, and they just haven't produced this point, mostly because they aren't all healthy. It happens. But on the flip side,
we have a all right.
The flip side, The Seahawks offense looks incredible. Kenneth Walker is fantastic.
Yeah. A couple of comments real quick. Tim Hawkins says, when will Staley get fired? I believe he gets the entire season, just like Ryan said about Hackett up in Denver. I believe Staley gets the entire season for nothing less than Herbert's not playing super fantastic. Let's not give him a new playbook. That's my opinion on it. So I think Staley gets the entire season. However, I do believe he's out at the end of the year. And then Ken Brandt says Herbert's playing scared. I think it's got to do with the play calling and the lack of weapons, as Ryan already alluded to. Herbert is playing scared, but when you're standing back in the pocket for 5 seconds and nobody gets open, part of that's on your receiving core because his offensive line is giving him some time, not tons of time, but some time, and he just can't find anything.
I touched on this last week too, or not last week, a couple weeks ago. The Chargers are slow too. They're another slow team. You look at what Jalen Guyton was supposed to be for this team. He was supposed to be the guy that stretches the field, and he went out with an ACL tear. He's before week 1 started, so he's not playing anymore. Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Gerald Everett. These are not guys that can stretch the field. You have a big arm quarterback, big time guy dropping back in the pocket, and they can't push the ball down the field because none of them run well. It's right now. The players that are on the field are not being put in the greatest positions to succeed. So
I preach it week in and week out.
To answer that Staley question, if they miss the playoffs, I think he's done. If they somehow work their way into the playoffs, he'll stay another year.
Listen, they are 4-3. The Chargers are only a game ahead of them at 5-2. That it's
the Chiefs.
Extremely possible, huh?
The Chiefs.
You said what Chargers. Did I say? I said the Chargers. I meant the Chiefs. I'm sorry. So it's entirely possible. And as you pointed out, on the flip side of that, Kenneth Walker, man, that pick.
42nd overall, baby. He looks good. And it was going to be between Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker for Offensive Rookie of the Year. And it was only going to be those two in the competition. But
now it's only one. And then there was one.
Yep.
The Steelers visiting the Dolphins. It's alumni weekend here in I'm not in Miami, but in Miami. They went over the whole 17-0 season of the 1973 Dolphins, 73 Dolphins.
72, 50th anniversary.
The Super Bowl? Yeah, correct. Yeah, 72 Dolphins. It was a wonderful ceremony. Dolphins come out and win 13-10.
I think it was 16-10, wasn't it?
It's for as explosive as that offense is supposed to be.
The Steelers have a good defense. I mean, Minkah Fitzpatrick.
I know that the Steelers have a good defense.
Tua looked a little off in his throws. His timing was off. He tried to hit Tyreek Hill over the middle a couple of times, and it just didn't look like that they were on the same page fully. I expect Tua to shake off a little bit more of that rust. Truthfully, this game went almost exactly the way that I would have thought that it would have went. Tua shaking off a little bit of rust, but Kenny Pickett showed why he's a rookie. The defense played well enough. They were given several opportunities, and he's just going to make the rookie mistakes and turn the football over the way that he did. Maybe he wins one of those games this year because he's a talented guy, but he's going to continue. The Steelers are going to lose games like this because they have a rookie quarterback in. What do you expect?
So Tim Hawkins says a lot of missed interceptions for the Pittsburgh defense. That's true. Tua Tagovailoa, Ryan said it, looked very rusty, and there were times where he underthrew and overthrew Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki, and all of those times could have turned into interceptions. But that's why they play defense, right? They're not wide receivers because they can't catch football.
Yeah, and somebody pointed out that was the reason they lost the game, and I kind of looked at him and I was like, your offense scored 10 points and Kenny Pickett turned the football over 3 times. What do you mean? Like a drop, you know what they call a dropped interception? A pass defended. Defender did his job.
Correct. Yeah.
He didn't catch it, but he doesn't have to.
That's why they play defense. Bears at 2-4. Gee, going to Foxborough. They went to Foxborough and did what they did. And look, I don't think the Bears are a good team. I don't know what's going on with the Patriots. One week they look really, really good. The defense looks really, really, really good. The offense looks like they're clicking. And then they come home and they lose 33-17, 33-22 to the Bears.
This is the epitome of the NFL this year, right? You have two teams where people have these preconceived notions, these biases, the Bears, they're the Bears. They suck. Oh, the Patriots, they're going to be a playoff contender as long as Bill Belichick's there. They're both mediocre as hell. That's what they are. They're both mid. Like there's a lot of just mid teams in the NFL this year. That's why the competition's so level. There's so many just I wouldn't say, I guess mid is kind of like a negatively frowned upon term. There's a lot of even competition in the NFL.
There's going to be, I'm predicting there's 2 teams that are just barely over 500 that make the playoffs this year. I'm calling it right here, right now. 2 teams at 9-8 make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I'll look into more in the standings and get back to you on that prediction later. We can do like a mid-season review, something like, I don't know. We'll figure it out. But yeah, these teams are mid, in all honesty. So it doesn't surprise me that the Bears won necessarily. It surprises me how badly they won. And I'm not going to poke at you because I've definitely gotten things wrong on this show too. Last week, you sat up here and told us the Patriots defense was good. They looked terrible. They looked like they couldn't stop a glacier from moving across them. I mean, the Bears ran the football on them at will.
I was wrong.
That happens to the best. But you know what? Next week, the Patriots defense is going to look amazing. So that's just the way football is sometimes. But yeah, the Bears might have actually found a recipe for success in the fact that don't let Justin Fields throw the football ever. Just let him run the football the whole time. David Montgomery, Khalil Herbert, and Justin Fields are going to form the best running back trio in the NFL.
They're still a sub-500 team, but I also believe the Patriots are a sub-500 team. So the outcome of this game didn't surprise me in the sense that, like, oh, the Patriots are supposed to be a playoff team. I didn't think the Patriots were a playoff team. We had our
I don't think
divisional breakdowns.
Either of us did.
Yeah, no. We had our divisional breakdown before the season started. I said the Patriots were easily the 3rd worst team in this division. I thought they could be the 4th worst, and right now they are looking like the 4th. You hit the nail right on the head. There are a lot of middle of the road teams in football this year, in the NFL this year. And the Bears and Patriots just proved it last night. 33-22 victory, 23-23 victory, whatever it was. All right, we got a couple of topics we want to talk about. Oh, sorry.
One more thing. Hot take here. Bill Belichick's playing for his job. But we'll go more into that in another episode.
We've been saying that for weeks, and I firmly believe. Damn, I almost closed out of this window. I do firmly believe that is the truth.
All right, let's cover the rest of the topics. Got some NFL news.
Yeah. So other topics covered. You go ahead, fire away, buddy. You got them, or do you have them pulled up? You want me to do it?
This is your show, man. I'm just here to talk a bunch.
We're going to talk about the Breece Hall injury, as Ryan's already talked about, for the Jets, and how they've already gone out and traded for James Robinson of the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was pretty clear that the Jaguars were going away from Robinson and moving towards Etienne, and now it's happened.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so. But James Robinson joins Michael Carter up there in New York for the Jets, and I think they're a pretty good 1-2 punch. Not as good as Breece Hall, Michael Carter punch, but I think that they split time pretty well, probably 60-40 in favor of Michael Carter. But I do believe that James Robinson comes in and he gets touches, not right away, and he's effective with those touches.
Yeah, so the first report to come out was that Breece Hall tore his ACL, and there is some very minor MCL damage. So it's not like a Javonte Williams or J.K. Dobbins injury. Therefore, he can probably recover in the offseason and be ready for training camp next year. That being said, this trade was weird to me because there's a report coming out saying that James Robinson is going to immediately fill the Breece Hall role. And I don't get that because they're not even close to the same kind of running back. Breece Hall is speed, elusiveness. He's explosive. He can run between the tackles, but I mean, if you get him in space, that's where he's the best at. And then you look at James Robinson. James Robinson's slow. He's a little bigger. He's kind of between the tackles. And he's coming off an Achilles injury that outside of one 50-yard run this year, he does not look good. I'm going to sit here and be honest. Like, even in the beginning of the year, if you take away that 50-yard touchdown run he had against the Colts the first time, I want to say it was, he's averaging 3.5 yards a carry. Like, that's why they moved to Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is so much more explosive. He's a much more versatile back than James Robinson. And this trade, 100%, I'm not going to say it's a win-win, and I'll get into that why. This is a Jaguars victory on this trade. The terms of the trade are the Jags get a 6th-round pick that can turn into a 5th-round pick if some conditions are met. I don't have all of the conditions, but it has something to do with James Robinson's playing time and his snap percentages and his touches. I don't think that this is a win-win because James Robinson is a huge downgrade from what Breece Hall was giving you. And now you are going to have to be put in a position to throw the football a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you could see the inadequacies, or not necessarily the inadequacies of the Jets, because they still played pretty well against the Broncos. But without Breece Hall on the field, the offense isn't as dynamic. It's not as explosive. They only put up, I think they only, what did they win? 16 to 10? I think we talked about the score. I forget what it was. But they're not as dynamic with Breece Hall in the field because Breece Hall adds that X factor to your offense, right? A linebacker and a safety have to kind of trail him because a linebacker isn't fast enough, so the safety has to get over there. And that leaves your receivers open. You know, your Garrett Wilsons, your Corey Davises, your Elijah Moores. And because of that, losing Breece Hall is a big deal. Now, Michael Carter is similar in the aspect that he can catch the ball out of that backfield, but he's not as explosive as Breece Hall. And as you already pointed out, James Robinson is a downhill back. So if you're looking for a guy who can pummel and give you 50 yards a game and between the tackles and hope for first downs on third and shorts and fourth and shorts, you picked up a good running back in James Robinson. Outside of that, he's not on the level of Breece Hall like you talked about.
No, and I think Carter and Robinson can complement each other well because they have opposite skill sets. However,
correct.
Breece Hall can do everything.
Yes.
If you ask him to. I mean, James Robinson is not Breece Hall, and he's coming off an Achilles injury that does not look good. This was not a win-win for me. The Jets just gave up a draft pick for a guy that was an undrafted free agent. The Jags literally bred James Robinson, got him for free, and then got something for him. That's a win in my eyes.
I would agree with that. Next thing on the docket, obviously, you already alluded to it earlier on the show. Matt Ryan gets benched for Sam Ehlinger. Ehlinger. Okay. Yep. This was interesting to me because they have a quarterback on the roster by the name of Nick Foles that I thought for sure would take over after Matt Ryan was inevitably benched. But they decided to go with Ehlinger. Give us your take on it.
This is similar to a Carson Wentz jumping Chase Daniel after Sam Bradford gets traded on the depth chart. So in the sense that the Colts are obviously a struggling team, they don't feel like that they're going anywhere with Matt Ryan this year. They benched him. They're trying to see what they have in Sam Ehlinger because they are going to draft a quarterback if Sam Ehlinger is not it. That's what this comes down to. You know what you have in Nick Foles, so maybe if you need to make another quarterback swap and the Colts are in some sort of divisional contention area, you can go to a Nick Foles where you know what you're going to get. But this is Sam Ehlinger's job for the rest of the season as a trial run to see if they're going to draft another quarterback or not, which I end up thinking that they do. I don't think Sam Ehlinger's skill set that he had at Texas is compatible with NFL quarterback play. I just don't think that he's that great. That's my personal take on that. But
I don't think we'll see Matt Ryan again, but I do believe we'll see Nick Foles at some point.
Yeah, no, Matt Ryan's done. There's no way that you don't bench him after guaranteeing his contract just to bring him back out. You're here to see what you have in Sam Ehlinger.
Listen. I'm honestly surprised if he suits up at this point. I think it should be Ehlinger and Foles on the sideline. You talked about it so much more than I did about how Matt Ryan was not an upgrade to Carson Wentz. You were on it. You had it. Good for you. Absolutely, you called it. And Matt Ryan went out and showed why you were right. Like I said already, Carson Wentz had 7 interceptions in 16 games last season. Matt Ryan had 9 in 6 games. That's absolutely horrendous quarterback play, point blank. And that was Matt Ryan. Listen, yeah, I know one of the 9 interceptions was tipped by Michael Pittman and intercepted. Yes, I do believe that there should be a statistic for interception off of wide receiver versus interception off of quarterback. But regardless, Matt Ryan didn't look good at any point this season. Their record shows it. The team showed it. Hopefully they get Jonathan Taylor more involved and this team finds ways to be, relevant. Otherwise, as we pointed out, Frank Reich's gone.
Yeah. And Tim Hawkins asks, Ryan retires. Why would he? He's guaranteed $29.5 million next year.
If he retires, he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Last topic we got to talk about, Cam Akers is definitely on the block. He's been on the block for a couple of weeks. Teams are inquiring the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay about him. I don't know what the price they're asking is because you'd think if they aren't going to utilize him, getting a second round or a third round pick is too much. In my opinion, he's coming off of the knee injury. So I'm assuming teams are offering 6th and 7th round picks and later round picks in the future, and that just hasn't tickled the fancy of Sean McVay and that Rams team. But Cam Akers is on the block. Where do you think he goes?
I have an interesting theory, and I need to look up the numbers to back it up. But Cam Akers has been scratched. He has been told not to show up to the team facilities. He's done in LA. One way or another, he is not returning to the LA Rams. He will not be back with the team this year. That makes it tough to trade because everybody knows that news. That's public news. Nobody's really going to pay for a guy that is either still hurt, not in the right mind, whatever the case may be. However, if the internet would cooperate with me, I need to see the Rams draft picks because, here we go. Here's an article. Might show me something. Okay, so they do have 3. Okay, so I have an interesting theory then that the Rams take Kareem Hunt. You think about Sean McVay. You think about Sean McVay's offenses. I mean, this could work out for both sides. Here's why. One, Kareem Hunt has the talent to be a lead back. We've seen it. He's dynamic, and he would fit like a glove in the Rams offense, and the fact that he's a dual threat. The Rams have been dying for a good running back for years now. It's evident that they don't think that highly of Darrell Henderson because when Akers got hurt last year, the first thing they did was go out and trade for Sony Michel. So they obviously don't think that Darrell Henderson can take it on. They drafted Kyren Williams in the 6th round this past NFL draft. There's just not a lot of evidence to show that the Rams have faith in Darrell Henderson to carry the workload as a running back. And on the flip side of that, the Browns could gain Akers, gain a maybe 3rd round pick. Maybe we'll see about that. Gain a draft pick, whatever. And they take on a guy who doesn't have to be the lead role. There's no expectations for Cam Akers if he goes to a team like Cleveland because Nick Chubb's obviously going to take the workload there. Now, Cam Akers would obviously be like the pass catching role. Maybe Dearness Johnson flips in there a little bit, but there would be no expectations. There would be no pressure for Cam Akers to go in there and perform as at the 1st round level talent, 2nd round level talent that he was drafted at because he just doesn't have to. I think the trade could work out for both sides, but it really all depends on the draft picks.
Ken says we got to talk about the Phillies. We haven't announced it yet. We're doing a show on Thursday. We're going to talk about the Phillies. There's your announcement.
We've now announced that we're talking about the Phillies on Thursday. Back to football.
Yeah. Yes. How about them Phillies are in the World Series again? We'll talk about them on Thursday. Let's see. There was something else I want to talk about. No, I can't think of it. I should have typed it in.
Cam Akers, Kareem Hunt trade.
No, so yes, Kareem Hunt is also on the block. Teams have been contacting him. A lot of people have attached Cam Akers Cam Akers or Kareem Hunt to the Eagles, and I don't see it. You pointed it out a couple weeks ago. Unless it's a definitive upgrade, you don't want to disrupt that locker room. They're 6-0. Leave them alone. No. And so I don't see either of those scenarios happening. Also, the Eagles are in great position. The Saints don't look that great, which means they have a top 4 pick right now. If you need a running back, you got running backs coming out in the draft. That doesn't make sense to me. As for Akers, I do like your take of the Browns. However, I think it's a scenario where he probably. Originally, I was thinking Cam Akers to the Buccaneers is what I was thinking for the reasons that you stated earlier, right? Leonard Fournette's slow. A whole offense is slow. Cam Akers is still pretty quick. And he could be a nice spellback in terms of what Leonard Fournette has to offer, which is obviously ground and pound. Every yard counts for Leonard Fournette. Cam Akers can be like a bit of a mix-up for that. So I was thinking Cam Akers to the Buccaneers. Now that they've been losing, I don't see it as much, but that's what I was thinking. Doc is clearly doing fun things for Ryan.
Very fun. He's happy to be here.
You got anything else for us?
No, man, that's it. Why don't you go ahead and take us out?
You know how to do the buttons, right?
Listen, that's been a little while.
Listen, we are BSing Sports Podcast, an affiliate of the BSing Network, where we do a little BS and we talk a whole lot of sports. You guys have a great night.
Have a good night.